Coming to you from the Combine in Indianapolis. We will get into it right now.
Yo, it's time to grind. With Brian on the mic, content is one of a kind. Now, welcome to my show, the BS Report, where we let the truth flow. We're breaking down the stories, shining light on the games. No fake news here, just hot takes blowing flames. The BS Report, yeah, we're keeping it tight. Bringing you the news, making it ignite. Tune in, turn it up, feel the heat rise. With Brian in the house, our takes won't be compromised. From the latest news to the hottest debates, in the BS Report, we're setting the stakes. So come along, join the ride, where Brian and his subscribers are full of Niner pride. Yo.
What's going on, Niner gang? Welcome to the BS Report. So I am coming to you from my hotel room in Indianapolis, where I just got done attending my first day of the Combine. Technically day 4, I guess, first day of drills, but it's my first day here. And I would say my initial thoughts are, it has been a pretty cool experience. I think it depends a lot on what your intentions are for coming here. Um, I guess the point of the combine is to scout prospects, right? So if that's what you're coming here for, I would say unless you are a member of one of the organizations or member of the media, you might have a better experience from home. Um, Watching this on NFL Network and getting the analysis that way, and then being up because you in at home you're closer, honestly, with the TV and the cameras and stuff like that. If you're coming to get the experience of what the athletes actually go through as far as the drills and stuff go, now we don't get to see as fans in person um, the player interviews and stuff like that. But if you want to just experience the whole thing that the players go through as far as seeing it, um, the way that they're coached up, the way that they run through their warm-ups, the way that they prepare on the field for their drills and their reaction after any specific or particular drill, whether it's good or bad, then that is one cool thing about being here, because that's something that you don't really get in the coverage. In all the years that I've watched the combine, that's what you don't get. As soon as any particular athlete is done with their drill, the camera pans to the next athlete, rightfully so. Well, when you're there in person, especially if there's an athlete that you're particularly interested in, you can see the way that they're prepping for their next drill, the way that they react to the drill that they just completed. And I would say, so that's cool. But if your goal for coming to the combine is primarily to scout these athletes and break them down and have all the numbers and do all that stuff, honestly, you're probably better off doing that from home. Um, my goal for coming here was not necessarily to scout the athletes, because as I just stated, I could have done that from home. I could have got the numbers um, just as easily from home. In fact, probably easier, because when you're there, it's hard to keep up with what each athlete's numbers are, as far as, what their vertical was, what their broad jump was, what the 40-yard dash was, and the 10-yard split, all that stuff. It's hard to keep up with all of that when you're live and in person. When you're watching it from home, it puts it across your screen. Well, obviously, that's not the case when you're there. So if your goal as a fan is to scout, you're better off just being at home doing that. Um, but my goal for coming to this was to get just an overall sense of what fans think of the 49ers, what fans think of their own particular team as far as fans of other teams besides the 49ers, and just, see if I would be able to get any kind of a sense for um, members of the 49ers that might be here. Now, those guys are up in press boxes during the actual drills. I didn't know if they would be down in the bleachers lower, because when you're at the combine, the fans are on, an end zone side. The general admission is in one end zone, and the drills are ran on the other side of the field. And so, pretty much, I would say a little over half, 2/3 of the stadium is blocked off to just general fans. Um, and so I didn't know if maybe scouts and general managers and owners and coaches and things of that nature might be in the bleachers on the other side closer to the action. Well, from what I could tell, it looks as though those personnel are up in the suites, and the credentialed members of the media are the ones down in the stands in the other on the side of the end zone where the drills are being um, done. So it's a little hard to gauge some of this stuff that I would have liked to have. And now it's just day one. It might be a little different as things go on. I don't know. It might stay exactly the same. But I would say that it's still a pretty cool experience to be able to see the way that the players interact with each other, um, the way that they interact with the coaches that are putting them through these drills, and the way that they are on themselves when they do well or don't do well in a particular drill. And it's pretty interesting to see. Um, Another thing is I'm staying in a hotel, and there's a lot of the athletes that are participating in the combine also staying here. And this morning I was having breakfast, um, and there was a couple of athletes, and I'm not going to say who they are just because I don't want to call them out based on what I'm about to say, but there was a couple of athletes that were also having breakfast at the same time as me. And as a fan, it's real easy to forget sometimes that these guys are just young kids. And um you view them as just, you know, these rich athletes that, are coming into your team, your favorite team, and you put these expectations on them to be a certain type of way. And you forget that some of these guys are just barely not teenagers anymore. I mean, most of them, you know, and excuse me. And it's real easy to forget that when you just see them on TV and they're in their uniforms with their helmets on, and from a physical stature standpoint, they look just like the 28 to 35-year-old teammates that they play with. But when you're sitting there and you're sitting 2 or 3 feet away from one of them, or some of them, a few of them, and you hear the conversations that they have, and and honestly, with athletes at that age, or people in general at that age, I should say, um, it's real hard not to hear their conversations because it's not like they're exactly quiet, you know? So without even trying to eavesdrop, you get a sense of, and I don't want to say maturity level because it sounds like I'm saying they're immature. It's not. I guess they are in a way, right? But what do you expect from a 20-year-old? You know what I'm saying? So they act like 20-year-olds. And so you forget the position that a lot of these kids are being put into. And I say kids in not a disrespectful way at all. It's just a fact of their age. And, you forget that these guys are 20 years old, um, aside from being in college for the last 3 to 4 years. They've never really been on their own. And even in college, they have coaches that, and members of booster clubs and all these people that are looking out for their interests. And when they get to the NFL, the leash is completely taken off. And you get cases like, um, well, I'm not going to call out any specific player in the past because I'm just not going to do that. But you get cases where athletes kind of go a little bit crazy, and they make mistakes and they do things and they act a certain way. And the reality of the situation is they're acting like 20, 21-year olds who just got handed life-changing amounts of money and freedom and fame. They have people everywhere they go and everywhere they turn trying to throw many different things on them, good and bad, you know? And I would assume that that could be a little bit overwhelming. And I think that it would be really hard not to fall into some of those traps. Um, and so, when I was sitting there at breakfast this morning, that's, kind of the first thing that I was thinking of as I was listening to these players talk. Um, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm listening to these conversations and I'm listening to the way that they are presenting themselves and the way that they are um, just acting like carefree 20-year-old kids. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. And I'm thinking to myself, in about 2 or 3 months, these guys are going to be multi millionaires. And I know with NIL, they already are, a lot of them. Um, but they are still to some degree handled with kids gloves. They still have a leash on them. They're still in a university. They still have a lot of rules to follow. They still have a lot of responsibilities that they have to live up to in order to be able to continue to gain that or get that, right? And so, they it's different when they get to the NFL. The leash is taken off. There's nobody, they're responsible and accountable for themselves at that point. They don't have a coach who's going to be there necessarily to hold their hand the whole time. Um, our coach, Kyle Shanahan, you know, I don't know him personally, but I am pretty confident in saying that he's not going to hold anybody's hand, especially not a rookie's. So, it's just crazy, and it's real easy to see how a lot of these kids can fall in. And honestly, in some ways, it's very impressive that more of them don't. Very impressive that more of them don't fall into trouble. I think back to even when I was 20 years old, if I would have all of a sudden came into, anywhere from 2 to 20 million. I mean, that's a lot of money. And a young kid without the right support group can go absolutely crazy with that kind of money. And so the fact that it doesn't happen more in and of itself is pretty impressive. But I don't know. That's just kind of what I was thinking this morning as I was having breakfast. And then at the combine as well, there would be the specific group of players that were participating in the day's events. Like today was defensive line and linebackers. Well, there's players from other position groups that are participating today. And as you walk around, you'll run into them from time to time. Not big groups of them and not a lot of them, but you'll run into a few of them here and there. And again, you just hear the conversations that they have and watch their mannerisms and things like that. And it's just really eye-opening to the fact that these guys are just young men, barely young men. They're really not at this particular moment prepared, I don't think, for what they're about to walk into. Now, because they're big deals on their campus and because they've probably been a big deal in their high schools and stuff like that. I mean, we're talking about the elite of the elite in their state, in their high schools and stuff like that. They're probably more equipped to handle it than, someone like me who was never an all-American college athlete or anything like that. So, they're probably a little bit more equipped to handle it than I would be than I was at that age, but still, they're just kids. And in some ways, I feel a little bit bad for them because of us as fans. We watch the sport, we watch the games, and when we see them, it's generally in full pads, uniforms, helmet, and everything. And you forget really easily that these guys are just young. You know what I mean? And it's really easy to get frustrated and stuff with them when they're not performing to the level that you think they should be. I've fallen into it sometimes when I'm like, bro, you're being paid however many millions of dollars to catch a football. And you forget about everything that these guys have going on, especially when they're young, especially when they're rookies, first or second year, and the amount of changes that are going on in their life. And it's pretty it's pretty eye-opening when you actually are around these guys and you come into contact with them, face to face, and you actually just stop and listen because you have nothing else to distract you. I'm here in Indianapolis by myself. I don't have my wife or children with me, so I'm sitting there and the only thing I have to do is listen to what's going on around me. And so I just thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know, maybe some of you guys already viewed it that way. I just didn't. I was like, whoa, these guys are just kids. That's crazy. And I think about my son, my oldest son, just turned 17. And I think to myself now, if somebody gave him $5 million in 3 years, how would he handle it? Honestly, probably not very well. My son's a good kid. He doesn't get in trouble. He's never been in trouble. He's a really good kid. But I don't know that if somebody gave him $5 million, my son loves basketball. So if in 3 years, if someone said, hey, I'm going to give you $5 million to go play basketball, I don't know that that would go so well. So it's pretty impressive that most of these guys actually don't get in any trouble. Most of these guys do happen to keep their nose clean, and that's a testament to the support that some of these organizations do give them. But it's real easy to see how they could get themselves into trouble and how things could fall apart real quickly without the right support group. So that's kind of what my initial thoughts were of the combine. Um, Now, at the end of this, when I get back home, I'm going to give you a full breakdown of all the players that I was interested in, um, scouting and watching, and what I thought of them from the drills that I seen. And I'm going to put together kind of my thoughts on the combine overall from a prospect standpoint when I get back home. The shows that I'm going to bring to you while I'm here are going to be similar to this one's, just my thoughts from the day, kind of what I experienced, and what I'm going to look for going forward into the next day until the combine is done. So with that being said, I want to talk about the main thing that I gained from today being at the combine, and that is fans' reactions to the combine. As far as what did other fans think of, like, the direction of the 49ers, the direction of their team, Brock Purdy. Now, my intention was to be able to put these fans on camera because I talked to the security or whatever you want to call them at the combine and asked them, hey, am I allowed to record here? and they gave you their rules and the regulations and what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. Long story short is you can record in short stints. You can't have any um, what would you call it, professional photography equipment or videography equipment. You can only do it from your phone, which was fine. So my intention was to go around and interview fans, to ask them their thoughts, whether it be on specific prospects, whether it be on, the 49ers organization as a whole. I was hoping to find some Rams, Seahawks, and Cardinals fans there and be able to interview them on their specific teams. And I was able to find all of these people. The problem is most people don't want to be on camera. So they declined. Now they were nice enough to have 5 to 10 minute conversations with me, which is cool, and they gave me permission to talk about it on the channel, but they just did not want to be on camera, and that's okay. That's understandable. I would say the overarching, response that I got as it pertains to the 49ers, number one, most fans that I came across today do not want to pay Brock Purdy anywhere near $50 million a year. Um, most fans can't understand why, if he's still under contract for one more year, are we even entertaining the idea at all? Why not just see what he does next year? And that's kind of what I tend to think. I tend to think, draft a quarterback somewhere in the mid rounds and let Purdy go one more year and see what he does, and then make a decision based on that. And I would say, I don't know, Purdy would have to put up an all-time great season for me to be anywhere near the $60 million a year range. But hey, that's just my opinion, and also the opinion of many other 49ers fans out there. It's funny. I talked to a really devout Rams fan today, and he was basically like in complete just jubilee that the 49ers are going to pay Brock Purdy $60 million. Well, he believes they're going to. I'm still not convinced that they will. I maybe that's just me really hoping that they won't, but he is basically just ready to throw a parade if the 49ers do that, and that's something that should tell everybody something. That should tell the 49ers organization themselves something. If your rivals fans are begging you to do something, that should tell you right then and there that you shouldn't do it. But so a lot of the fans were very much no on Brock. The other thing that it's funny, I was asking fans questions, right? And a lot of these conversations ended up turning into them interviewing me, which by doing that, it kind of shows you what the rest of the world that is not 49ers fans thinks of your team, right? So I was talking to Chicago Bears fans. I talked to a couple of them, and the main thing that they wanted to talk about was Deebo. And they were asking me all these Deebo questions. What are the Niners going to do with Deebo? Where do I think he's going to go? Why does he want to go? What happened? All these other things. So it's funny how I honestly think that a lot of these fan bases, when whoever trades for him, their fans are going to be overjoyed based on the reception that I got today. I was even talking to an Eagles fan today, and he was just like, man, I can't believe the Niners are crazy. Why would they give in and trade him? And I'm just like, dude, did you not watch him? Like, it's not even a question of why, it's what took so long. And so it's really crazy. I mean, this guy was like, I had one Eagles fan tell me that they would be willing to trade Devonta Smith for Deebo and a 6th-round pick. I'm like, okay, uh, where do I sign up for that? Like, I'll do that any day. So it's just crazy how Deebo still has this, I don't know, aura around the league of being this elite playmaking, game-changing wide receiver. And I think on certain teams for one season, if he really gets in shape and really takes it serious and everything just goes right for him, he may be a very good receiver again. I don't see it going on longer than one season because Deebo tends to do that whole roller coaster thing, but you never know. Um, but yeah, just it blew my mind. That's one of the things that blew my mind. And that was amongst 49ers fans, the main thing was Brock Purdy. Um, they don't want to pay him, at least not that much money. Amongst other teams' fans, the number one thing is who's going to get Deebo and why in the world would the Niners ever trade him? And I'm just like, what the heck? That just it's crazy. It goes to show that not a lot of people actually watch. And the casual fan. And I guess that would make sense because I look at teams from around the league and I guess they probably have players. Okay, for example, there is Dolphins fans out there. And there was a couple of Dolphins fans that I was talking to today, and their thing is a lot of them can't wait to get Tyreek Hill off the team. They want him to go. They want him gone. And I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, I mean, they seem to want him gone like we want Deebo gone. And I'm thinking back and like, I don't think he was that bad this year, was he? I mean, I don't think he had a typical Tyreek Hill year, but I don't think he's that bad. In fact, now I'm actually a little bit curious because I just thought of that and it completely blew my mind at the time because they were making it seem like I was explaining my frustration about Deebo. And they were like, yeah, Tyreek, the same thing. And he just needs to go. And I was like, what the heck? What? I know he didn't have as bad of a year as Deebo did. So yeah, I mean, he didn't have his typical. I mean, it was quite a bit of a down season for him, actually. 2023, he played in 16 games, had 1,800 yards and 13 touchdowns. Last year, he played in all 17 games, only had 959 yards and 6 touchdowns. But he was also playing with trash at quarterback for a good portion of that season and of last season, and that's got to count for something. Um, I really don't think he's as bad as his numbers show. But then that's me from the outside looking in, and that's I guess how a lot of other teams might be looking at Deebo. They might be looking at Deebo like he's not as bad as his numbers show. There was a lot of injuries on the Niners. Brock Purdy was hurt for a little while. Trent Williams in the offensive line. So I guess a lot of people could be looking at it like I look at Tyreek Hill, like he can't be that bad. So I guess it does make a little bit of sense. For me, I can't wait for Deebo to go. And these Dolphins fans, at least the 3 or 4 that I talked to, can't wait for Tyreek to go. So it just goes to show you how you get such tunnel vision on your own team and other people don't see that. And so I don't know, maybe we should trade Deebo straight up for Tyreek Hill. I mean, I'll take that trade. But anyhow, that was just crazy. So that was another thing. I talked to a couple Bears fans, and I had mentioned to them, man, I was really, really hoping that the Niners would trade Kyle Shanahan to them, and then we signed Ben Johnson to be our coach. And they both said it, we would sign off on that. And I was like, yeah, you guys don't want that smoke. You guys don't want that Kyle Shanahan. You're better off just going about it with Ben Johnson, in my opinion. And it's just, and it's real interesting to hear what their opinions are of guys like Caleb and um, Keenan Allen, who, again, I would say Keenan Allen on a team like the Bears, to me, he seems like he'd be the perfect receiver. He's not number one receiver material anymore, but on a team that has DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen's a pretty damn good number 3 receiver, if you ask me. And both of these guys were like, no, we don't want him back. I'm just like, wow, okay. They'd rather have Deebo, honestly. And I'm just like, I don't know about that. Although, as I've said in a previous video, I do think for Ben Johnson, that's one coach that could potentially get the most out of Deebo. That could get the best out of him because he's very creative, and that's the kind of coach that Deebo needs. If you have any chance of getting another elite year from Deebo or anything close to it, you're gonna have to have a coach like Ben Johnson or um, playmakers around him like Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, even Jalen Hurts a little bit, I guess. Um, Kyler Murray. I think Deebo on the Cardinals with Kyler Murray and Connor and Marvin Harrison Jr., he might be able to do something there. Now, I don't see that happening unless he gets really, and I still don't see that happening. I don't see Deebo wanting to go to the Cardinals, but that, he would give them an element to that offense that would be pretty interesting. Now, I don't know how creative that offense is. So I don't know that offensive play caller over there could get the most out of him, but having players like that with Deebo would make him more dangerous. So, and that seems to be what all the other fans are thinking with Deebo is. It's funny how they have Kyle Shanahan on such a high pedestal, and even still, like talking to these guys, they still talk like Kyle walks on water, right? They still talk like he's the greatest offensive mind, and any 49ers fan who wants him gone is nuts. But at the same time, they're saying Deebo's still good. He only sucks because he wasn't being used right. And I'm just like, okay, well, which is it? Is Kyle great, or does Kyle not know how to use his players? So that's kind of what I got out of it all. So it was pretty interesting. That's what I'm looking forward to over the next 3 days is talking to more fans and getting more perspective. And now that I kind of got an idea today of what certain fans think, tomorrow I'm going to kind of push into that a little bit. I'm going to try to really dig in and see if I can get, some more stuff like that, because it's not what I expected. Honestly, I didn't. I really didn't expect. I expected most Niners fans to be, we need to pay Purdy. Just because I see, I don't get so many comments on my YouTube, but I do read the comments on guys like Grant and Jesse and Coach and I see their opinions like we need to pay Purdy and this and that. But I'm starting to realize that a lot of people like to comment just because they hate a particular content creator. And so I want to say something. For someone, okay, I'm sure all of you guys who watch this also watch Grant Cohn. So of the stupid, hateful, ridiculous bullshit that was said to him on X the other day. And first of all, I want to just say that that's deplorable. I mean, that is one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard, is that somebody is going to go at somebody like that over football. Not even football, over his opinions of football. And I just think that there's no place in this for that. If that's the type of fan you want to be, then go be a fan by yourself. You don't need to come on here and act like a ridiculous, just I got to be careful what I say, just because it's still YouTube and I have some stuff I want to say, but I'm not going to say. I will just say that, Grant in particular, just because of how big his brand is and how controversial he can be sometimes, um, is gets a lot of hate and unjust hate. You know, a lot of it is in fun, and that's fine. Believe me, I would say that a lot of the stuff he says is to get a reaction because it's good for business. That's just common sense. But that was taking it too far. That what that one particular person did, and I hope that they find out who this guy is, and I'm pretty sure that they already did. And I hope that they punish him to the fullest extent that they can, to deter people from doing that again, because this is people's livelihoods. I mean, yeah, I mean, for guys like me and most other content creators, we have other avenues of income. In fact, I don't even get income from this as of right now. But for someone like Grant, this is his job. This is what he does. And a lot of times people say, well, you signed up for this and that. He didn't sign up for this. He didn't sign up for that. And so I would say to anybody out there who's ever wanted to send a threatening message like that to Grant or any other content creator, man, if somebody makes you that mad, if somebody gets under your skin that bad, just quit watching them. Quit paying attention. You don't have to. It's not a requirement. You can push unsubscribe. Like you don't need to do that. It doesn't need to go that far. And so I just want to say that was really disappointing to me, to hear that. And not to say that I will ever get as big as Grant Cohn. Maybe I will. Hopefully I do. That would be amazing. That would be awesome. Um, I'm not putting all my eggs in that basket. That there's a long ways to go before that. But even to get to the level of some of these other guys that I follow, it kind of makes you stop and think a little bit, because I have a wife and kids. I have a lot of kids. Some of them are almost adults and some of them are not. And it does make you stop and pause and think a little bit about if you want to do something like this, because there is crazy people out there that do crazy things and say stupid things and make stupid threats. And the last thing that you would ever want to do is have an opinion that you have potentially cause harm to somebody that you love, even unintentionally. And so alls I would say to anybody who follows anybody in any form of social media or anything like that is, if you're the type of person that would make that type of a threat, be better and do better, because you don't know these people. The person who made this threat to Grant does not know him. So to attack him on such a personal level because of an opinion that he has is ridiculous. And Grant has a wife. And so you're not, when you make a threat like that to him, you're not just putting an uneasiness in him, you're putting a fear in his wife, and that's not fair. She definitely didn't do anything to you. So alls I would say is to all the people out there who follow these content creators, if you really truly dislike a person and their opinion to that level, stop watching them before you do something that a whole bunch of other people will regret. And that's what I really wanted to say about that, just because I heard about that, and I heard about what was said, and I put myself in his position, and I thought about my wife and kids, and I was like, man, that is shitty. That's probably one of the most shitty things that I've heard in a while, is that somebody would do something like that. You know, could have been all talk, probably was all talk. I don't know. But that's the thing, you don't know. Grant doesn't know. His wife doesn't know. They don't know. So, what I would say is, just as I don't even want to say as 49ers fans, as human beings, we got to be better than that. That's not okay. So, um, anyways, guys, that's the show for today. Um, Tomorrow I'm gonna try my hardest to see if I can convince a couple of fans from other teams and our team to come on camera and to, allow me to interview them and get as many thoughts as I can, get as much cool content as I can from you guys, for you guys. Um, but I will be back tomorrow with a whole bunch more stuff, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.